According to John 14, verse 27, I leave you peace. My peace I give you. I do not give it to you as the world does. So don't let your hearts be troubled or afraid. This is NRP Media and Radio. The time is 5 p.m.
Whenever you hear the following tone, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, will be giving information on an emergency situation affecting the island. Please be on the alert and listen to your radio and television.
And I'm Kalisha. And we are the Chryso Praises. You're listening to NRP Media and Radio. Reaching you where you are. No boundaries, no limitations.
It's a new season. It's a new day. Join me, Lillian Mcdnaold, here on NRP Radio, where it's all about focusing on our health and wellness. When? Every Monday at 6:30 p.m. with repeats on Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Broadcasting on the platform of nrpmediaja.com, Facebook, YouTube at nrpmediaja. See you then. Welcome back to your health and wellness here on NRP Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those who are on YouTube, we want to just say welcome. I really do hope that from our last program, we would have had some converts to water drinking, and you would have been reaping the benefits of drinking water. You know, water is life, and it's really important. And you know what I do, I can tell you a personal tip is that I have a glass of water to start my day, and I have found that this helps with even flushing the kidneys. Yes, it might cause you to rush a little bit more to the bathroom to empty the urine, but that's a good thing. It shows that your kidneys are working and that you keep it flushed. So let's practice drinking water to reap all the great benefits. I don't know how many of us know that World TB Day is a thing in terms of a celebration. So March 24th is celebrated as World TB Day, and the World Health Organization is on a bid, on a roll, on a plan. They're taking steps to see how much we could do to eliminate tuberculosis. So TB is tuberculosis. Now, a number of us would have, especially those who are older, would remember when persons would say, yeah man, that the one they have consumption. So it's that awful cough that we're talking about, that prolonged coughing issue that sometimes means that, this person may have an issue with TB. But let me give you some statistics and some important information about tuberculosis that perhaps you didn't even realize. And I just want to explain a little as to what tuberculosis is, give you an idea of what are some of the prevention tactics or strategies, because it is curable and it is preventable, but it will not be cured or prevented by just knowing that it's there. But there are some activities that we are to do or we're expected to participate in to be able to achieve these. So as at March 14th, 2025, the World Health Organization shared that a total of 1.2 million people died from tuberculosis in 2023, and this included 161,000 people who were living with HIV worldwide. Now, TB is thought to be the world's leading cause of death from a single infection agent. And, the only thing that really took front page was when we had the COVID 19. That virus, run ahead and created more deaths than TB. In 2023, there were 10.8 million people who fell ill with TB or tuberculosis worldwide. 6 million of them were men, 3.6 million were women, 1.3 million were children. And as you notice from these numbers, these statistics, the men, were the leading ones who were infected with TB. TB, however, does not respect age. So it's not that it won't affect a child or an elderly. Any age is at risk for TB. Like I indicated before, TB is curable, meaning that it can be cured. And it is also preventable, meaning that you don't, even though it's infectious, even though it's something that you can catch, you don't have to end up catching it. All right. So there is another type of TB that, or another challenge that we have as it relates to TB, and this is the multi-drug resistant TB. And this remains a public health crisis and a health security risk. So there are people around, and what they indicate is that 2 in 5 people with this drug resistant TB, have a little challenge. Well, they were able to access the treatment site, because so you can imagine the 3 out of the 5 who with drug resistant TB were not able to access. And this is a health crisis, as was indicated, because what it means is that the person with TB has not been cured for one reason or the other. And as we go along, we'll find out how multi-drug resistant TB occurs, and that is based on our practices. Those of us who, when we get our medications, we take a portion of it, or we take it at the times that we feel like taking it rather than following the instructions, as well as not completing the entire course. Those are some of the things that leads to multi-drug resistant TB. So the World Health Organization has a target to end tuberculosis, and this is one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, that one of the health goals that we've been working towards. But what is this tuberculosis? It's an infectious disease. And by infectious, we mean that it is easy for someone to catch it from another person or from areas. So, for example, if someone coughs, someone with active TB coughs without covering their mouth, and those particles get on the surface of a desk, and you go and place your hand on the surface of the desk where the person would have coughed, and then take your hand and perhaps, you know, pick your nose, wipe your mouth, wipe your eyes, just eat without washing your hands, then you can see that's how it would be transmitted. And so that is why I said to you that in terms of the preventable and the preventable steps, there are things that we can do. So tuberculosis is an infectious disease, and this is caused by a bacteria. It's called the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And most often it affects the lungs. It is spread through the air when people with active tuberculosis infection coughs, if they sneeze, or if they spit. So this coughing doesn't mean that if they cough and they observe proper cough etiquette by coughing in a hand towel or in the inner part of their elbows, or if they cover that sneeze, or if they spit in the correct spaces. Sometimes we have a practice of just spitting on the road, spitting through the windows. Not though, if persons have active TB and they do that, then that is how persons are at risk. All right. Those who are infected, but they are not actively infected rather, cannot pass the disease on. So you would have persons who are treated and living with tuberculosis, but they are not active. Those are not the persons I'm talking about. I'm speaking about the persons who are ill from TB at this moment. And once that person coughs, once that person sneezes without covering, once that person just spits outside, then that puts other persons at risk. We must note too that the vaccination with the BCG is one of the methods that we here in Jamaica use to reduce the impact or the risk of persons picking up or becoming infected with TB. Additionally, persons who have other diseases are going to be at a greater risk of catching TB or becoming infected with TB if they come in contact with someone with active TB. And what I mean by other diseases, I'm speaking of those persons who are diabetic. They are being treated for diabetes. Those persons who are not well nourished, they are malnourished, they are not properly nourished, probably because they're not eating well, or they might have other illnesses that create malnutrition. Those persons are at risk. The other persons who are at risk are those persons who are living with HIV and other persons with weakened immunity. And sometimes your immunity can be weakened because, for example, you are receiving cancer treatment, you know, and persons who are living in crowded areas, those who are homeless, so they're not being cared for and they're living with a whole lot of different people. So those areas, once you have overcrowding in a space with inadequate cleaning and sanitization, then the risk will be increased. And so those are some of the things that we'd have to address as we go into the prevention. How do you know, or how would you even suspect that you have tuberculosis? A prolonged cough, this chesty cough, this cough that is lasting for more than 3 weeks, just continuous cough. All that you do, you just can't get rid of this cough. Sometimes you try all sort of remedy, but the cough persists. Then watch out. Go and seek medical attention. It may be that you have been exposed to TB. And especially when you cough, you realize that you're seeing blood in the sputum, in the spit, in the whatever comes up, then that is also a red flag. Especially if you have no other issues that would create that sort of bleeding and for you to be coughing up blood. But coughing up blood is not something you just sit at home and say, oh, well, no, you need to go get checked. Chest pains. So you're having coughing and you're having chest pains. It's not that you did any bad lifting. It's not that you would have injured yourself, but you're just having serious pains in your chest. Then this is another red flag. You're feeling weak, you're feeling tired, you're feeling so out of it. It's as if you can't manage yourself and you're losing weight. You're not on a weight loss program, you're not trying to lose weight, but you're just having this weakness, this constant tired, and you can obviously see that you're losing weight without explanation. These are other red flags. You're consistently or intermittently having fever. So some of us may not have a thermometer, but you can recognize that no man, I'm feeling hotter than normal. Yes, the days are hot, but this is not just hot. I mean, you're in the fan, you're somewhere cool, you just had your shower, but you're still feeling hot, like you're having fever. And in the nights, you realize that, boy, you're using your fan, you're using your cooling methods, but the sweat is excessive, night sweats. Once you're having those in combination, you want to go and check your medical professional and explain what you've been having so that, the relevant tests can be done. Tuberculosis can happen in other parts apart from the lungs. So if it is happening in other areas, there might be other signs and symptoms. So if it is happening in the brain, you might have the headaches, and if it's in a child, you might hear what we call this shrill cry, this funny high pitched cry, you know. So there are different places that tuberculosis can occur in, and based on where it is occurring, there can be other signs and symptoms. So the important thing as we're here on our health and wellness presentation is that you don't have concerns about how you're feeling, how you're managing in terms of your health, and just keep watching it forever and ever. You want to make it a habit to get your health checks done. Go and get, tested. Go and see what's happening in your body so that you are better aware of what's happening. A number of these illnesses that we are exposed to, if we were alert and we caught them early, then interventions could have been done to assist us to, recover quickly, get a cure, and for it not to be so devastating. So pay attention when your body is sending signals. Be sure to respond, be sure to take note, be sure to stay alert and get checked. We are up on a break, a station break, and so I'm going to just take a break right now and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. It's a new season, it's a new day. Join me, Lillian Lewis McDonald, here on NRP Radio, where it's all about focusing on our health and wellness. When? Every Monday at 6:30 p.m. with repeats on Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Broadcasting on the platform of nrpmediaja.com, Facebook, YouTube at nrpmediaja. See you then.
There's always a word in time to meet all your conditions. And right here on nrpmediaja.com, it's no different. Join the NRP family every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock for the Amplified Word. The Amplified Word will provide you with encouragement, motivation, and spiritual direction. Come on board and tell a friend. You will be glad you did. The Amplified Word every Wednesday morning at 9, only on nrpmediaja.com.
Hi, I'm Geneve.
And I'm Kalisha.
And we are the
Christo Praises. You're listening to NRP Media and Radio. Reaching you where you are. No boundaries, no limitations.
All right. So welcome back to this your program on NRP Radio, and we are talking about your health and wellness. Today we are talking about tuberculosis, TB for short. And just to remind us that tuberculosis still exists, it's still a thing, and the World Health Organization has described it as one of the leading causes of death. COVID-19 was the one that came and took it over, and this is a death from a single infection. All right. Now, TB, tuberculosis, can be cured, and it's also preventable. How do we prevent it? So earlier I spoke about those persons who are at risk. And so it would be important then for persons who have other diseases, diabetes, HIV, cancers, that you are very keen on taking care of your nutrition, avoiding crowded environments for long, or in this day and age, if you have to be in a crowded space and you know that your immunity is not at its best, you are being treated for a cancer, for example, you want to make sure that if you're going in a crowded space that you are wearing your mask to protect yourself from any, infectious issues. For prevention, additionally, once BCG is offered, it's important that at birth the babies, the neonates, get their BCG. And this is vaccination that helps to reduce the person's risk for TB. Seek medical attention if you notice that you are coughing. You're just coughing for weeks going. You're trying every remedy you know in the book, but there's a prolonged period of coughing. You're coughing up blood. You have a fever. You are losing weight and you did not plan to lose weight, but all of these are happening together. As I had indicated before, it's very important that we pay attention to our body and what it is actually saying to us. Another prevention strategy is that if you are HIV positive, it's important that you get tested for TB. And especially if you realize that you're having the coughing and you're not feeling well, it's very important for you to get tested. And I want to emphasize that early treatment of tuberculosis can help to stop the spread of this disease and improve the person's chances of recovering. So, you getting the information today is to arm you to say to your friend, your neighbor, your relative, yourself, if you realize that you're having this persistent cough just going on like that, let me go to my health provider and let them know that I've been having this and, the possibility of being tested for TB. Another prevention strategy is when we're coughing generally, we need to practice cough etiquette. We did a lot of that in COVID 19, but we also need to recognize it's not just for COVID 19. But like I said, it is important that when we're coughing, that we cough in that space. We put the inner part of the elbow over your mouth and you cough there, or you get a tissue hand towel and you cover your nose and your mouth coughing that, then you throw that away in the bin, a covered bin, and you also wash your hands or use your hand sanitizer. The other thing is when you're sneezing, sometimes I know sneezing is like an involuntary, you may not really know that it's coming, but once you know, you feel that thing coming, you normally have a little inkling that it is coming, you try and cover that sneeze. Please, we need to stop spitting everywhere, spitting on the road, spitting, we're just spitting everywhere. We need to spit in the appropriate spaces so that if there's active TB, others are not at risk for, becoming infected. Those in the healthcare setting who must take care of a patient who is being treated for TB, active TB, must wear their personal protective equipment. And this includes a respirator during the time when you're, in the immediate space of the patient. How do we diagnose tuberculosis? And this is one diagnostic test that was, put forward on the World Health Organization site, and it speaks to a rapid molecular diagnostic test. And what they have indicated is that this is one of the initial diagnostic tests that they have recommended. And this test uses a nucleic acid amplification NNA, which quickly detects the DNA Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is the bacteria causing tuberculosis, and the specific bacteria causing tuberculosis in the specimen is detected. So the DNA that is linked to the specific bacteria is actually detected during this testing, and the results are usually ready within hours compared with a culture, like the sputum culture. So here in Jamaica, we do, if you're in hospital, because once you are diagnosed as having active TB, you would be hospitalized and you would be required to give 3 sputum tests to be sent for culture, over early mornings, 3 consistent or successive early morning sputums. So this rapid molecular diagnostic test is being purported as something that is even quicker than the culture results that will come back from that, because it is ready within hours, and it's also able to detect, those persons who might be suffering from multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So what happens here is that the sputum is taken, the sample is processed in a gene expert platform to extract the DNA from the Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria. Then this extracted DNA is amplified using a PCR, you know, you allowing for detection of specific sequence associated with M tuberculosis. And as I said before, it can detect if there is a multi-drug TB, and the results are ready within a few minutes. So that's one way to test for TB. The other way to test for tuberculosis TB is one that we would know, and this is the MAN2 testing, or the TST. So this MAN2 testing, what will happen is that you'll put forward your forearm, so the inner aspect of your forearm, you would turn it towards the person who is doing the test. They have a small amount of tuberculin, which is parts of the actual tuberculosis bacteria itself, and they use a very small needle and go just below your skin and insert, some of that there. Now, 2 to 3 days later, you'd be required to go back to the facility, go back to the person who inserted the tuberculin on their skin between 2 and 3 days, and a measurement would be done to see what the reaction is, if the area got raised, how much was it raised, and this is how the positive or the negative result comes up from the size of the bump. Notice though that if the reading is not done 2 to 3 days after the test, after the sample is put under your skin, you'll have to repeat the test. So it's very important that you do this test in a time where you're able to go back for the results. And the public health nurse, is usually engaged in this situation. Now, TB or tuberculosis can be in an inactive state, and in this inactive state, you do not pass it on, meaning you have TB, but you're not sick, you're not having a cough now, you're not having a fever now, you are just carrying the TB. At that point, you're not able to infect someone else. But if you become sick, start coughing and having the signs, the fever, the weight loss, the fatigue, and you have TB, then that is the time when you are able to pass it on. And babies who are born to a mother who is diagnosed with active TB, you know, there's no study to show that the baby would have gotten it from the placenta. Nothing has been shown that happens. However, if the mother has active TB and is in close communication with the baby, without wearing a mask, then the baby can be at risk. So you can see where it's going to be important for mother with baby to be wearing a mask. All right. Another important thing for TB, if you have someone in your home with TB, is the cleaning of the surfaces, using soap and water to wipe down areas, that may have been contaminated or come in contact with a cough or a sneeze and so on. So it's really our practices that can help. And just to let you know that once someone has been diagnosed with active TB here in our country, Jamaica, we have the National Chest Hospital, which is the hospital that is specific for treating persons with lung conditions and tuberculosis is included. Then that person would be admitted and they'll be given medication over a period of time. And like we said, if this medication is not taken as is ordered on time for the duration, then that is what puts us at risk for developing a multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So, if you have been diagnosed with tuberculosis, it's not a death sentence. It is just for you to be compliant with taking the medications as ordered. If you have to be hospitalized, yes, the hospitalization period can be long, but it's in a bid to ensure that the treatment becomes something that leads to a cure. And if you have been discharged to continue with medication, I want to encourage you to have to take your medication on time and until it's completed. Because when it becomes a multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, there exists a greater challenge. It means that the medication that is usually used becomes useless and different medications will have to be formulated, and this might mean longer stay or higher doses and more challenges. So, as I said before, pay attention. If you're having a persistent cough for weeks, you're having night sweats, you're losing weight without explanation, you're constantly feeling tired and weak and fatigued, and you're having fever, you're coughing up blood, go and get checked. You may have to do an x-ray because a chest x-ray is also a part of one of the diagnostic methodologies. The MAN2 testing is one of the diagnostic methodologies, and once in hospital you might be required to do those 3 sputum tests that are sent for culture and sensitivity. That's what we do here in our country. And once you are being suspected, you're going to be started on your medication. And so it's really, really important that early detection, early health seeking behavior will result in better outcome. All right. If you have questions, if you have concerns, I want you to call us. I want you to message us rather on 876-336-9928. Any questions, any concerns, any contribution. If you want to give me an update as to how your water drinking is coming along, let us know how beneficial this program is to you. And we thank you so much for listening. We thank you so much for tuning in here on NRP Radio, where we talk about your health and wellness. I'm Lillian Lewis McDonald, and it was a pleasure being here with you. Until then, see you. Bye.
I'm Geneve.
And I'm Kalisha. And we are the Christo Praises. You're listening to NRP Media and Radio. Reaching you where you are. No boundaries, no limitations.
You're now invited to listen to the latest JIS program aired in time allowed right here on nrpmediaja.com for government broadcasts.
I'm Jada Francis with the JIS News for Monday.